Hey, Bill. Thanks for being on the show. How you doing this Friday morning?
Well, it's my privilege. Thank you for the invitation, and we're doing great. It's going to be 80 degrees here today,
Wow. It's not like
Wow.
that in
and it's
England.
doing we're doing great.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a welcome change to the weather since it was a couple weeks ago over because you live in Texas, right?
Yes, San
Yeah.
Antonio,
Oh, okay. Um, so
beautiful, beautiful city.
so how do you feel about not having to wear a mask anymore? Isn't that the governor said Texas no more masks for anyone?
Yeah, but he has left it up to the local governments like the mayor and the businesses and things. I'm going to wear a mask until I think this is over.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
I'm not a young guy and I'm high risk, and why roll the dice? I mean, what's so
Yeah,
tough about it? You put a freaking mask on.
exactly. It's
that's my
not tough at
sentiments.
all.
Well, what do you
Yeah.
think Sam would have thought about wearing a mask?
Oh, I don't think he'd have been too supportive.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. So tell me, where was the Kinison family originally from?
Well, we always thought we were Irish, and then I did that DNA thing and
Oh,
found
did
out
you?
we're actually from Eastern Europe. We don't have a
Oh,
bit of Irish in us,
Oh,
and
wow.
so I don't know exactly what we are. And by the time it's got down to our level, we're just mutts now.
so what state did you grow up in?
We grew up in Peoria, Illinois, in the same projects that Richard Pryor
Richard
did, but we
Pryor.
didn't know Richard then. We met him, when Sam got into comedy and ended up being very, very close friends.
Another legend in comedy, Richard Pryor. But yeah, he came from
Oh yeah,
Peoria.
that was actually Sam's inspiration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
Is
had
he
read.
he
Yeah, I'd read that
he
Sam,
was
like
a he was
memorized it.
yeah
Hmm.
yeah he was a preacher, and he got married, and as in his routines, it lasted 2 years. And but on their honeymoon, they went out to L.A. and they went to the Comedy Store and happened to have seats right in front. And Richard Pryor was up,
Oh, man.
and Sam had always admired Richard Pryor. And but after watching him and everything, I don't think he got to meet him. But after watching him, he decided that, or at least he told me, he came back and said, I saw Richard Pryor, and I go, man, that's fantastic. He said, I can do that. I can
And
do that.
and
Yeah,
that's
I
how he
mean,
got
And
started.
then 2 years later, he got a divorce, and so he was through in the ministry. In our circles, that was the worst thing could happen to you if you got a divorce. They used to tell you that if you can't take care of your own house, you're not fit for the house of God. And so Sam did what he'd always really wanted to do, and that was get into stand-up comedy, and the rest was history.
So preaching, though, was your family's business. Like your father was a preacher as well, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Did you ever
yeah.
get into
And
preaching?
and all three of my brothers.
Oh,
Pardon?
were you a preacher as well?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I read that Sam kind of felt a stigma about being a preacher's kid. How'd you feel about it?
Well, Sam didn't feel a stigma about being a preacher's kid. What bothered him is that we actually lived in the church that our parents pastored,
Oh, wow.
and so I was like the tough kid in the neighborhood, so I never got teased or anything, and but I think Sam did, and so I remember we went next door. We had a fella that lived next door that was a widower named Mr. Kelly, and we went over and told him, "Hey, if any kids come and ask for us, tell them that we live here, but we're working over at the church to try to keep anybody from knowing that we live there." It didn't bother me. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's like a
you
free
know,
house. Like, was there a house in, like, did you live in, like, rooms behind the church, or was it like a home
no,
within the
no, no,
church?
no. It was a big Methodist church, 24 rooms, and
Oh, wow.
my father had built a church and a parsonage, and then he sold it and bought this church, and then upstairs they just made living quarters. They had
Yeah.
turned Sunday school rooms and stuff like that into our living quarters. That's where we lived, and I lived there till I got married.
Yeah.
actually at 23, and Sam lived there until he ran away at 14, and then 2 years later showed up and lived there again.
So was Sam a rebellious teen? Like, was he a rebel back then?
Yeah, I would say so. He wasn't a, Sam wasn't a mean kid. He was he just, I used to tell him, I even told him when he got into comedy and in his routines and stuff, I go, dude, normal people don't think like that. And that's how he grew up, just doing anything that, he.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. Well, I think part of the thing is with him is his intimidating stage presence. When he was a preacher, did he have that? Did he yell, scream out the fear of God
the
in
fire
people?
and brimstone.
Well, we were raised in fire and brimstone and sending you to hell and waiting for Jesus to come and dancing and falling out on the floor. And that was the kind of church we was raised in. But with Sam, I know this is going to sound crazy, but his weakness in the ministry, he wasn't very successful. And the reason is that he really felt like preaching was giving out information. And I used to tell him all the time, man, you've got to be an entertainer. You have to entertain them and give them information. And so his weakness was really stage presence. And then when he got into comedy, it was like,
the exact opposite.
All the barriers were gone and he could do and say whatever he wanted, and he did.
So how did he develop his act? So you said he saw Richard Pryor, he was inspired, like, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. Was it a pretty natural transition for him from preaching to comedy?
He never changed at all. Never changed at all. I mean, he the way that he started, which is interesting, because when he first got into comedy down in Houston, Texas, he was a prop comic.
Prop comedian.
He'd bring out a box of props.
I cannot imagine you doing that.
Like a Bible?
No, not. I don't think he ever had a Bible, but he did a lot of Jesus jokes and stuff that I personally thought was hilarious, and so did everybody else. But his style was still the same. The scream didn't come until 6-7 years later in Los Angeles, and he was married to his second wife. And my wife and I came out to L.A. I would handle whatever business, which wasn't much at that time. And so I remember we showed up at their apartment, and man, it was a knockdown drag out. They were into it. And so I finally, we got them split up, and then I told Sam, I said, let's go down to the Comedy Store, man. Let's get out of here. And so I guess they've been arguing for like 3 days. And so, when you're mad, you really don't want to be around happy people.
No.
And so we went to the Comedy Store. Sam got up and started doing his routine. And right down front, there was this couple that they were young. They looked like might have been on their first date or something. And they were just all giddy over each other. And it drove Sam nuts, and finally just stopped. And his first HBO special, he goes over to a guy, and that's what he did this first night. And he goes, "Hey, you think you love her? Look at her. This is the best it's ever going to be right now."
I love that.
And before you, before you decide to get married and have a nice little house and a picket fence and 2.5 kids and a dog, I want you to remember this face. Only Sam's mad. He's not trying to be funny. He's mad because he's been mad for 3 days.
Yeah.
And he gets down and just yells in this guy's face, as you can see in that routine.
Oh, God, it's the best.
And that's when the scream was born, man. Everybody went nuts, and so he just started incorporating it in everything he did, and that's what he was known for.
Yeah, it definitely became like his, signature scream. So how did he get into, he moved here. He didn't really have any connections. So how did he break into the Comedy Store? Like, did he have to get on the casting couch with Mitzi Shore?
Oh, probably a little more than that, but yeah. first 2 years of comedy, I mean, he was just a natural. He was absolutely a natural. I seen him after, he'd been doing comedy about 6 weeks, and that's when Rodney Dangerfield had walked in after doing a big show, and he would go to a small club and encourage the comedians, and Sam did the same thing when he got big. Anyhow, Rodney walked in and had his entourage, and I told the bartender, I said, whatever they want, I'll take care of it. And so he said, all right. So he goes over and tells Rodney, that the guy at the bar is paying for it. And so Rodney asked me to come over and sit with him. And Sam was on stage. He had no idea I was connected to Sam. And so he's watching Sam. Now, you got to remember, Sam's only been doing comedy about 6 weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
And he's watching Sam, and he turns around to him, and he goes, hey, I'm going to tell you right now, this kid's a genius. He's going to be big. I don't know how long it's going to take him because he's not too disciplined. But he's a genius. And so from then on, him and Sam struck up a friendship. Rodney and I ended up being very, very close friends. And 6 years later, it was, I guess it'd be about 3 years later, Rodney gave him his break, which we almost blew. Mitzi would hold Sam off till about 2 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And by that time, Sam had developed a big following of underground people, of celebrities, of porno stars.
Oh, yeah.
And so they would call in and go, what time is Sam coming up? And they'd say at 2 o'clock. Well, Comedy Store would be packed at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, he did his routine, and I was at home. And Rodney told him afterwards, says, hey, I'm doing an HBO comedy special, and I think you're ready. I think you ought to do it. And so I owned a comedy club in Madison, Wisconsin, and I had just held the finals of the Showtime Funniest Man in America thing. And so when he asked Sam, I think this is good for you. I think you need to do it. And so Sam told him, hey, I don't do contests. And he didn't. I mean, he wouldn't have won with his material. And
I don't know how that would have gone.
So Rodney
over.
was like, where's Bill at? Where's his brother? And they said, I think he's home. Give me his phone number. And they called me like 3 o'clock in the morning. Tells me the same thing. Doing this HBO comedy special. And I don't know how far we can go on your podcast on language.
Oh, it's fine. You can swear. Yeah, feel free.
You can say whatever you want,
okay.
Bill.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to tell you what Rodney said. He called me and gives me the same thing he told Sam, and I tell him the same thing Sam told him. Sam doesn't do contests. And I remember Rodney going, what the fuck is it with you two guys? It's not a goddamn contest. A showcase. Yes. I really think it'd do something for him. So I said, well, I'll talk to him tomorrow and see what I can do, Rodney. So we got together, and both of us didn't think anything's going to come of this. 6 minutes with other comedians up there, which there were some strong ones there.
Yeah, who else was it, like Bob Saget?
Yeah, you had Saget. You had I'll tell you who the funniest guy was, but he ended up being, I guess, weird as hell, was a guy named Bob Nelson. And he played this football guy.
Oh, I've never heard of him. I'll look him up.
Yeah. Well, he stayed in Florida. We actually wanted him to open for us one time on a tour. And he said, yeah, I'll do it when you're in Florida. And I said, dude, we're offering you $5,000 a show on expenses. He said, I don't leave Florida.
Oh, wow.
And so I called Rodney since he was on his HBO special. And I said, hey, what's the story with Bob Nelson? He goes, he's fucking nuts. I tried to get him to come to Vegas and open for me, and he won't leave Florida. But I thought he was outside of Sam, but Sam blew everybody else away.
I can imagine.
And, of course. Yeah, he's a fantastic comedian.
But the funny thing was, well, first, I better get back to how we got up there. We talked about it, and neither one of us thought anything's going to happen. And so we decided we'd do it because we got a free trip to New York. And that was
why
it.
not?
We go up there, we do the 6 minutes, we come back to L.A. and starve some more and hope for something to happen. Well, they did the show the night before, setting up with the camera crew and all that to get the camera angles and the boom mics and all that. And they had a crowd. Sam cleared the room. the night before they recorded it, everybody walked out on him. The crew probably would have walked out if they hadn't got paid.
Like, were they offended?
So Sam comes off and, well, either offended or didn't like it, or
just,
I've seen Sam clear out a few comedy clubs. And but I remember Sam goes over to Rodney and says, "Hey, I can't get going in 6 minutes." And so Rodney tells him, "Tomorrow night you're going to kill. You're going to kill tomorrow night. I'm telling you, you'll kill." Well, the next night come, and Rodney was absolutely right. That 6 minutes totally changed his life.
Wow!
I mean, in a week after he was on there, and it showed, I signed a 4-special deal with HBO. I signed a 4-record deal with Warner Brothers. I signed 3 appearances on Saturday Night Live. I mean,
he just blew up.
All that within a week.
That's
yeah,
how it goes,
and when I tried to get these guys, to do something with Sam to start with, they'd always go, after laughing their ass off, and then they'd go, "Well, we don't know what to do with him." But after seeing him for 6 minutes on HBO, they all decided they knew what to do with him, and so that was the beginning. That was when he hit it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he blew up, but he was always a controversial figure. What was his deal with Bobcat Goldthwait?
I watched this interview. Bobcat,
yeah.
Because do you know what, Bill? It's on YouTube. I'll send you it. Bobcat Goldthwait still has a feud with Sam. He's still into it, and I read that he also had a feud with Whoopi Goldberg too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So
Sam, if he didn't have trouble going with somebody, he'd create it. But the Goldthwait thing, the reason I laugh so much is Sam never thought about Goldthwait. That was they were in 2 different area codes, man. I mean, he never thought anything about him. And so no one came to Sam's show and thought they were going to see Goldthwait. But a lot of people went to Goldthwait's show thinking they were going to see Sam, and when they didn't, it was rough sledding.
Yeah, see, that had to have pissed him off.
Well, it did piss him off.
Oh, Bill, he is still very bitter about it. Believe me.
Oh, I know. I owned a theater in Upland, California, and so I thought, I have Goldthwait come and perform. He wouldn't even talk to me.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
But then the other thing with Goldthwait is that Sam and Sylvester Stallone were best friends.
Yeah,
they lived like a mile from each other, and they were best friends. Well, Goldthwait, I guess, goes on Stern or somewhere, and he starts trashing Stallone's movies that Stallone never even went in the service or anything. And
this is not a wise move, is it?
No. So I remember one morning, I think Goldthwait was on there and on Stern, and so Howard calls Sam, and Sylvester's there. And Sylvester starts telling him, "I'm going to beat your ass the first time I ever see you, man." And so Sam was always loyal to his friends, so that was the Goldthwait period. And then the Whoopi Goldberg thing is Sam was dating Penny Marshall of Laverne and Shirley, and which I could not figure out. I said, "Dude, I'd have took Shirley."
Yeah.
I wouldn't have got with Penny.
Yeah, Laverne. I don't
know. It's the truth. And then Sam's telling me, man, I did an L and Coke off of her breast and all that. And I go, I don't even want that visual. And so anyhow, she's directing Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Oh yeah.
And so Sam and her are dating, and so she wants Sam to be the guy that's on the phone and all that kind of stuff, and to be in the movie. And Whoopi says, if he's doing it, I won't do it. And so that started that. And then I love because, Whoopi Goldberg now is supposed to be this political genius or whatever, going to give us advice on politics. Well, back in those days, she was wanting to have a fist fight with Sam out in front of the comedy store. So that was, and then she was also on comic relief. Her and let's see, you had Robin and Billy Crystal.
Oh yeah.
Well, Billy and Whoopi would not, they wouldn't let them have Sam on there. They wouldn't even invite him as to sit in the audience. And here's the guy that for 6 straight years had the Concert of the Year award from Billboard for sellouts and everything else. And so her and Crystal, Robin and Sam were very, very close friends, but Crystal and Whoopi kept him off of comic relief. And so, Sam really didn't like that.
I can understand. And, it's jealousy, isn't it?
Well, I think also, Sam was associated with like Howard Stern and that whole crowd. And Howard Stern was also, stigmatized. Like people were trying to avoid him like the plague. But they had that huge cult following, and I think like people like Billy Crystal and Whoopi, I think we're jealous.
They don't have a cult following. That's to put it politely. They don't have a cult following.
No, he does. He does.
Billy Crystal.
I still do deals. This guy's he's going to be dead for 30 years next year.
Oh, no, Sam does. I was saying Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal don't have the same level of talent that Sam and Howard Stern
Well, I think what upset them is that, they're playing, a club or a theater somewhere. Sam was playing civic centers. He was drawing 5,000 to 10,000 people a night.
Wow.
Sam played the Giant Stadium in New Jersey.
Wow.
And drew 83,000 people.
Good God,
stand up with a microphone.
Yeah, it's unheard of.
He was the very first. I don't care what Dice Clay says. Sam was the first stand-up comedian that ever sold out Madison Square Garden. But the very next night in terrible weather and on a Tuesday night, he went to the Nassau Coliseum in New Jersey and sold out 17,000.
Wow.
Man,
and so, when you got somebody up there, playing at a club, and then you see Sam, who there's nobody like him. He's not doing an act like anybody else. He's offensive. He's rude. He's loud. Everything you want to say about him. And I thought I think it was 2 years ago, I did a documentary called I Am Sam Kinison. And Ted Nugent said something on there that I thought was really interesting, or I thought it was true. And he said, Sam, they were close friends. Anyhow, he goes, Sam was playing the same venues as the rock bands.
Yeah,
with no pyrotechnics, nothing else but a microphone, and he was playing the same venues and drawing the same number of people that we were. And that's really saying something.
No, he crossed the line into becoming like rock star status, Sam Kinison. And you could kind of see that with I'm just going to talk about the Wild Thing video. He had every rocker in that video.
Yeah, every rocker in LA at the time.
Yeah.
And he was friends with all of them.
Yeah, he hung out with those guys.
With all of them.
Yeah, he definitely was a rock star.
It's more like they hung out with him.
Yeah. So back then, what was one of your favorite memories of hanging out with Sam? He must have got laid a lot, and we all both know he did a hell of a lot of drugs.
Those. I just thank God that TMZ and all those people weren't around back then.
I'm just thinking back to hearing him on Stern, and the stories he would tell on Stern was just insane.
And all true.
Yeah.
All true.
Was it difficult as you were his manager? How hard was he to manage?
Well, it's like babysitting a 2-year-old. It was. I ended up with shingles.
Oh, man.
Oh yeah, I read that you got shingles.
Yeah, from the stress. I ended up in a divorce.
Oh man.
And it wasn't me running around because I had to take care of business. We'd be in Vegas, and and I'm a day person. I'm a morning person. and I'd get up to go golf, and Sam would be coming in from partying all night. And it was so funny because Sam would be going, "Hey, brother, I'll see you later. I'm going to bed. Have a good night." And I'm going, "Hey, good morning, man. Have a good day." So it was, but you talk about memories and different things. I'll give you, Sam did not know athletes. He was not athletic at all. He wasn't interested in athletics. And so Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, with a big number of other athletes, were big fans. And I grew up being an athlete. Anyhow, so Kareem and I got to be friends, and we were playing the Comedy Store one night in the big room. And so Kareem had come with another big white guy named Frank Brakowski, who got traded the next day to the San Antonio Spurs. And he comes to me and he goes, "Hey, Bill, yeah, I'm really a big fan of Sam's, and I've seen him several times. Is there any way I could meet him?" And I said, "Sure, Kareem." I said, when the show's over, you and Frank come here, and I'll have the guys, when he's ready to see people, I'll have them take you in because I've got to settle up the show and all that stuff.
Of course.
No problem. Well, I played basketball. Was one of the things I played. And I start hearing Sam. I'm in this office settling up the show, and I hear Sam yelling, "Bill! Bill, somebody get my brother. Bill." So I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh, shit, what the hell?" So I get up and I go in here. Now, Abdul-Jabbar really wasn't 7'2". He was about 7'5".
Okay.
Big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And
he's
I go
massive.
in and I go, what's going on, Sam? And he goes, "This guy says he plays basketball. I told him maybe you and him get a game sometime." And he's talking about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
playing
He has no
basketball. with
idea. Yeah, has no idea who he is.
Never heard of
And
him.
so I look up at Kareem. And I'm going, "Oh, Kareem, I'm really sorry. He just doesn't, he doesn't know athletes and all that." And I remember Kareem looking down at me, way down at me,
He's 7'5".
and laughing. Yeah, and I'm 5'5". Anyhow, but I remember him looking down at me and laughing. He goes, "Bill, do you know how refreshing it is that he's probably the first person that I've ever been around since high school that didn't know who I was?"
Wow,
And
that's
so
hilarious.
then the other, on the other side of the coin was Sam knew all these rockers and everything. Well, we were doing
Every
a show at
porn
the China
star.
Club. Yeah, well, that too. And I go down and I'm going, I'm trying to think of his name now, but I go down, I'd say, "Where's Sam at?" I sit down in the office. I go down there, and there's this guy who looks like a dealer. And, and they're doing blow off of the desk before the show and stuff. And I'm like, "Hey, pal, time for you to go." And so he just kind of looking at me, and Sam's already buzzed. And he's going, "You don't know? You don't know, man." And I'm going, I don't know what. "You don't know." I said, "Well, okay, I guess I don't know, but if you're not out of here in about 10 seconds, I'm going to throw you through that door. Time for you to leave." "You don't know, man. You don't know." And I go, "What don't I know?" And I'm trying to think of what his name was. On the wall, Pink Floyd, the guitar player.
Oh,
Man, I can't think of
Gilmore. David Gilmore.
David Gilmore? Is it,
No, not him.
Oh, wait. What's his name?
It can't be. Sid Barrett would have been dead by then.
Yeah. No, it would have been. I'm trying to think of his name right now. Was it Roger Waters?
No? Shit, I'll think of it when we hang up.
That's
Anyway.
always how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, the name means nothing to me because I
Yeah.
didn't know rockers.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up, liking the music that Sam did. And anyhow, I finally, you tell me this is such and such fucking such and such and such. So I go, "Well, nice to meet you, whatever your name is, time for you to get out of here. And then he tells me who the guy is, and I was like, oh man,
Kicked out Pink Floyd.
I'm really sorry, man.
I mean, he was friends with every band at that time. Like he knew all those guys.
No, he was.
Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, he was peers with those guys, the biggest rock bands in the world.
Oh yeah.
And God, that must have been just a crazy time to party with him. And I know Howard Stern really admired Sam Kinison. I mean, they were definitely very close. Did you ever go on the Stern show
Howard
with him?
Oh yeah, I've been on there probably about 50 times with Sam, and then after Sam died.
Wow. Oh.
Howard, when Sam died, Howard called me, and he told me, he said, I'm not coming to the memorial service out of L.A. because I think all those guys are fucking hypocrites and everything. But he said, I want to tell you something. And at first it threw me off. He said, Sam was my best friend.
Oh, well.
I know I wasn't his best friend, but he was my best friend.
Oh.
And at first I'm thinking, what the hell is he talking about? And then I thought about it, and I thought, man, that's really observant because he was right. I mean, they were very, very close friends, and he probably was Howard's best friend. But Sam had other friends that he probably considered, closer than Howard. And then Howard did tell me, he said, if you write a book, I'll write the foreword for you. So I said, well, I'm going to. And he did. So
wow,
Howard's a good guy. Cool. I love Howard.
Yeah, I love Howard Stern.
Always been inspired. Yeah, always been inspired by Howard Stern.
And he said nothing but good things about Sam. Even now, like I was reading a quote recently about where he said how much he loves Sam. I think that 30 years after someone has died, to still have those same feelings for them, that really does show like the strength of their relationship.
Shows how much of an effect he had.
Of course.
Yeah, he's still Howard still on every April 10th, if he's on the air, does the whole show's about Sam. And his appearances on there, he'll play appearances and stuff. He's been a very, very, very good friend. I love Howard. He's a good guy.
So Sam died at the young age of 38. I mean, very untimely. April 10th, 1992. So what exactly happened? He was driving a car to Vegas, right? And he was struck by a truck? It was driven by a kid? A teenager?
Yeah. Actually, we were going to a Laughlin. And he had just got married 10 days before. And, or actually 5 days before he got married. They went to Hawaii for a quick honeymoon, and then he took the red eye back. And Sam didn't like to fly. He always thought he was going to get killed flying. So whenever he didn't have to, he didn't. That didn't quite work out, by the way. And so he called me that morning and said, I'll meet you. I'll drive to Laughlin, and I'll meet you at Barstow. So I said, all right. And so we did. And then we talked for a while, but there was strange stuff. Like just before we got on the river road of which he got killed on, he had to get some gas. So we pulled off the gas and had the security guy and the opening act and all that. And I was in a van because on Sunday, I didn't want to have to stay there. I could drive back home. And so I was in a van. And so while they were filling up and everything, he goes, I want them to take everything out of my car. And I go, Sam, we're 20 miles from Laughlin. And he goes, I don't care. I want them to take everything out of my car. So I tell him, hey, empty out his car and put the stuff here in this van. And then he had this little dog called Russo that he took everywhere. Mm-hmm. And then he tells me, have him put Russo in the van. I'm like, what? What's going on? And I remember him telling me, he said, I was thinking, I've achieved every goal that I set out to achieve. So I've got to set some new goals. And then we talked about business because I was going to do, but he got killed, but I was going to change our booking agent and stuff like that. Anyway, now he gets in the car. Well, he always followed me because either he was smoking out and didn't know where he was going, so he'd follow me. But this time he pulled out in front of me.
Oh.
And we went about, I guess, 3.2 miles on a river road, and the sun was starting to go down. It was dusk, and I could look ahead, and so could Sam, and we could see a pickup truck over in our lane. It was busy, and he was passing cars, and so Sam couldn't hear me, but I'm in the van with the security guy and in the opening hatch, and I'm going, slow down, Sam, let this guy back in, slow down. And so Sam slowed down to probably 15 miles an hour. And right at the last second, this kid gets back over in his lane. So I'm sure Sam did too, but I had a moment of relief. And then what we didn't see was there was another pickup right behind him, and he hit him head on.
Oh, wow!
And
people drive so fast on those desert highways too.
Well, there were 3 trucks. They were all teenagers. The kid that hit him was 17, and they were racing to Arizona. And whoever got there first didn't have to buy beers or something, and that's why they were in such a hurry. And so I slid the van up next to as close as I could to his car so I could get there quick. And the security guy was trying to open the door, and I guess just the adrenaline kicked in or something. And so I jerked the door open, and he was sitting in his seat. And except for, it looks like if somebody would have took their 4 fingers and scratched his forehead, he didn't look bad. We didn't know he was dying until he died. And anyhow, I opened the door, and so he starts saying, "Why? Why now? Why?"
Yeah.
And so I told him, I said, "Sam, just lay still. We got help on the way," which we didn't because it was a dead area back then for your cell phones. I got his and mine. I'm trying to get 911, and so he started scooting out of the car. Well, he weighed 280 pounds, so if he wanted out, there wasn't anything we could do about it. So we laid him right there on the ground next to the door, and then I went to the van, which is really like 5 feet away, and I'm still trying to call 911. But I noticed this dog, Russo, who ordinarily, because he's totally untrained, he'd be gone. Van doors are all open. He'd be gone, and he's got his paws on the dash, and he's like looking over Sam's head. And that got my attention. I'm thinking, man, that is weird. And then you know how you'll say something without thinking, and security guy in his opening act was there with him, and then I was, like I said, trying to call about 5 feet away, and so Sam. First he said, it was like, it wasn't afraid. It was like he was negotiating. And he's going, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die."
And he's just laying there on the highway.
And then finally, yeah. Well, he ended up with a broken neck, fractured skull. Oh. Anyhow, he goes, "I don't want to die." And then he goes, okay. And that's it.
Wow.
Well, without even thinking, because again, we know he's hurt, and probably hurt bad. We didn't know he was dying.
Yeah.
And without even thinking, I go, "Is he still breathing?" And they started freaking out, and I was like, no. Who else knows how to revive him besides me? I took CPR, and so the kid that hit him was a volunteer at a hospital. He said, "I do." I said, "Well, get your ass over here." And then we could hear the police come, and we were trying, but he was gone.
Oh, he was gone.
He was gone. And that was it.
Wow. I mean, he was one of those like larger than life personas that I wonder if like he even thought he'd ever hit 40, you know?
No. He said his entire life he'd never see 40.
Yeah. I have some friends like that.
And that was before he started partying.
So his wife survived though, Malika. Malika Suri?
Yeah.
Whatever happened to her?
Well, let's see. I wrote my book, and she sued me, but she dropped her suit. She didn't come to his funeral.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And yeah.
Yeah, that
And
sucks.
that's simple. I read that was she suing you for defamation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she was suing me on the book, that I had defamed her and had invaded her privacy, which neither one was true. I mean,
Yeah.
I just wrote what what it was, but I was actually nice to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I wanted to load her up, I could have loaded her up.
Oh,
I decided, no, I'm gonna write an honest book, and that's what we did. But she and I weren't friends, and for a year afterwards, when she needed money, she'd call me, and I'd get her some money. I think I got her like $250,000 in that year. And then after a year, I thought, wait a minute, I've done more for her than Sam would have done for my wife. And so next time she calls, I'm going to tell her, that's it. Well, she called immediately and needed money, and I told Malika, I didn't marry you. We weren't friends before Sam died, so I don't know why you think we would be now.
Yeah, there's no connection.
But I'm sorry he didn't make provisions for you, because he was afraid if he got insurance, he would die. And I said, I'm sorry he didn't make provisions for you, but it's not up to me to continue to take care of you. I said, I'll give you over $250,000, and you've got nothing. So I'm done. I'm out.
Well, she's not your responsibility at that point. Or ever, really.
Yeah. and so that
she's probably bitter.
We haven't talked in years and years, and I don't anticipate her ever contacting me. So, and I don't plan on contacting her.
I read that his epitaph on his gravestone said that in another time and place he would have been called a prophet, and I can't think of anything more fitting than that.
Yeah, I thought that described him. He was still a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
And he still believed, he still was a believer, even though, his life didn't show that.
It
That's
took
not
a different
how
course.
he and I believed.
I do just have to ask quickly, Bill, what's happened to his beret and trench coat? Do you have them? Because I know he stole the trench coat. He stole the trench coat.
Yes,
oh, that's great that you
that?
still have them. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I do. But how did you know that he stole it?
I am a very big Sam Kinison fan, Bill. I have lots of crazy insider knowledge. But he stole it from
do you remember
the film noir legend?
Do you remember who he stole it from?
Yeah, what's the actor's name? He's the film noir legend. He's still is it Richard Fairfax?
Richard Widmark.
That's it. Yeah, he was
Richard
round with his
Widmark.
Daughter, wasn't he? He was fooling around.
Yeah, he was dating his daughter, and he stole the jacket to wear on the HBO special of Rodney's to give him luck. Well, after he hadn't given it back.
Oh, it was his.
Giving it back.
Yeah,
So,
he stole
yeah,
that.
but man, it was a costume because it was beat up, but he wore it, and he wore it quite a while.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Love that you still have that. I love that.
So, Bill, your book is called Brother Sam: The Short, Spectacular Life of Sam Kinison, and your documentary. What's the name of your documentary? I Am Sam Kinison.
The latest one was I Am Sam Kinison, that you can. Paramount bought the company, so you might be able to find them on there, or I know you can go on YouTube and see it.
And you check it out.
It's actually a great documentary.
Well, I'm definitely going to check it out. Bill, thanks for being on the show. I mean, it was awesome talking to you. And hell of a life that both you and Sam have led, got to say.
It was an honor, Bill.
Yeah, it was an honor having you on the show.
Well, thank you.
All right.
It was
thanks
my
a lot.
pleasure to be on.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
Take care.